The Las Vegas Raiders have an issue. Actually, they have 6, and we're going to get into each and every single one of those on today's episode of the RaiderDPodcast. All right, Raiders and Raiderettes. The Raiders have a few holes that they need to fill in this upcoming draft, and they've already done a few things to address the issues in free agency, and what is left is essential to get just right in order to have a successful season. So let's get into first one that I want to talk about is cornerback. Now, with the exodus of Amik Robertson, we have to get a true number one corner, and we have not done so in the free agency, which leads me to believe that our eyes are in the draft when it comes to a corner, and there's a lot of draft projections out there that we end up with a Nate Wiggins, a Kool-Aid McKinstry, or Terrion Arnold at pick number 13. Now, I think that that would be a good way to address a very serious need, but I'm just a little bit concerned as to using a first-round draft pick on that corner position. And I think it's pretty telling that Coach Antonio Pierce was at the Alabama Pro Day having a little chit-chat with Terrion Arnold. Now, he is an excellent scout of defensive players, in my opinion. Just look at Jack Jones and look at Robert Spillane, who he was also a part of getting over to the Raiders. So I trust Coach AP. If he feels like this guy is a first-round caliber guy in Terrion Arnold or somebody else, then I'm going to be inclined to trust AP, and we're going to use that 13th overall pick to grab a corner to address a glaring need in the room. Now, I know that we have a guy by the name of Jacorian Bennett, who is a speed demon out there on the field, running an official 6'3", 40 in the combine. So he has that blazing speed, but a little bit undersized, and he's just not that great in coverage at this point in his career. Now, he was a rookie last year, so it remains to be seen how well you can develop Jacorian Bennett into becoming a true corner in the NFL. But at this time, he is just not the answer. And with the exodus of Amik, we really got to solidify this position. So I think Terrion Arnold, Nate Wiggins, or Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think all three of these guys are going to be fantastic, and one of them will most likely end up wearing the silver and black in 2024. So I want to move on to the next issue that we have, and that's going to be at the right tackle position. Again, we had an exodus of a starter, and that was Jermaine Illuminor, and now we have to fill that position. And I know I've been getting hit up in the comment section a lot where people are saying, hey, Thayer Munford's going to be the right tackle. However, I would have to disagree with that. I think Thayer Munford is a decent player. I think he has progressed quite a bit, and that's good to see. However, relying on Thayer Munford to be the right tackle when he was drafted by McDaniels to be a power blocking offensive lineman, not really going to fit well in our scheme where we need more athletic right tackle type of a guy, because we're going to be doing outside zone blocking a lot more. Offensive linemen are really good at one or the other when it comes to blocking because of their physicality. A power blocking offensive lineman needs to be big and strong. He needs to be a mountain, needs to be able to anchor down. But when you're talking about doing zone blocking, you're talking about smaller offensive linemen who are more agile, quicker, and can get to the second level. And that is the system that we're going to be running under Luke Getsy. So we're really going to have to address this situation because Thayer Munford is a power blocking guy, and he's not going to do well, I believe, at the right tackle position when we're going to be doing a lot of that outside zone running. So he needs to be able to get to the second level, and he's got to be a lot more athletic than he is. He's quite slow, and even though he's strong, I think he would struggle in that regard, and therefore we have to address that in the draft because we did not address it at this point in the free agency. Now, there are still some guys out there that are available, but it's just nothing that is really going to help us improve over Thayer Munford. And I believe that if you were to spend that number 13 pick on a guy like a J.C. Latham or a guy like a Marius Mims or a guy like Talisi Fuaga, I think any one of these guys would be a better scheme fit, and I think that they would excel under Luke Getsy's offensive scheme. And if you don't draft a right tackle at pick number 13, I believe that at pick number 44, there's still going to be some solid options out there. And at that point, you're just going to have to kind of roll the dice. Maybe you trade back up into the first round, into pick 20, pick 18, pick 19, somewhere in that range of the first round, and you grab your right tackle that way. But you would be forfeiting your second round draft pick, and that kind of could be a negative. Or you could trade back from pick 13 to pick 18, 19, or 20 and grab an additional second round draft pick, grab your cornerback at that point, and then use the additional draft picks you have to trade back into the first round and then grab your right tackle. Either way that it goes, these two positions really need to be addressed, and I think that it is a sure shot that the Raiders are going to be addressing that in the first round. Now, moving on to the next issue is going to be running back. Now, I understand that we went and signed Alexander Mattison to the Raiders from Minnesota. He is not an upgrade at all over Josh Jacobs. He's not even an upgrade over Zamir White. He is going to be a backup running back. Here's my issue with this. This guy's best year was only 700 yards on the ground. He is a receiving threat. He has good route running ability and he has good hands, but he's still nowhere near a Christian McCaffrey when it comes to a running back receiver type role. He's just another Amir Abdullah who's going to be added to the team, and it's obvious that we are moving towards a running back by committee. I think that in the draft, though, there are so many dominant running backs that will be coming in the second and third round. I'm thinking of like a Trey Benson from Florida State. These guys are going to be true 1,000 plus yard running backs in the NFL, and I think that the Raiders would be foolish to go into 2024 without addressing really the need and the gap that has been created by the exodus of Josh Jacobs. And I think that they will do that because you can grab great talent within the draft at later rounds because of the fact that running backs have been so devalued. So look for the Raiders to try and pick up another running back, possibly in the third round, maybe as late as the fourth round, to add to that running back room. We do have some other guys like Sincere McCormick on the team. I'm just not quite sure how they're going to pan out, and we will get to see more of them, especially if we're doing a running back by committee. However, you simply have to understand, we lost Josh Jacobs. He's one of the best running backs in the NFL, and I understand that we don't want to pay running backs anymore. I get that argument, but you better address it in the draft, because if Zamir White turns out to be a not it guy, and he just had a couple of good games, and all of a sudden in 2024, he's only putting up 3 yards per carry or, God forbid, less, you better have a backup plan. And I'm telling you right now, Alexander Mattison is not it. He's a backup caliber running back, so we better address it in the draft. The next issue, in my opinion, is going back over to the defensive side of the ball.
Well, before we do that, we got to put the kids to bed. You know how we do. Got to thank today's sponsor of the channel, and that is Earth Elixir, owned and operated by a Raiders fan. And it is my favorite company because they offer the Tongat Ali and Fedosia agrestis, which has been proven clinically to raise your testosterone without the need of TRT or testosterone replacement therapy. This is all natural, no fillers, no fluff. You get what you pay for. The link itself will save you an additional 15% just for the Raider D family.
And I'm going to have to say that we really need to invest in another linebacker. I know Divine Diablo has really improved over his time with the Raiders, but his rookie scale contract is going to be coming up soon, and we're not sure if we're going to keep him or move on, and he may ball out in 2024, and then we're going to have a real issue on our hands as far as cost, because again, you have to remember that we have another linebacker on the team who plays defensive end by the name of Malcolm Kuntz, and he balled out the last half of the season last year. If he does that again, we're going to have to pay him, and I think that the Raiders would be smart actually to go ahead and get him paid now, where he's going to be cheaper, lock him into a long-term deal, because I do believe he is going to be the next iteration of a Khalil Mack. Maybe not as dominant as a Khalil Mack, who knows? but he put up 8 sacks in the last half of the season. If he can do that on a consistent basis in 2024, he's going to end up with 12, 14, 15, maybe even 16 sacks in 2024. So we're going to have to pay him. And we're also going to have to deal with Divine Diablo. And let's be honest, Spillane needs to get paid. We need to lock him down. He needs to be the anchor out there in the linebacker core. But he really doesn't have anybody on the other side of him because Luke Masterson is a good player. I think Luke Masterson should be second string. I think that he should not be a starter. I think he should be a rotational piece in the linebacking core. So we really need to address that in the draft. There's not a whole lot to look at in this draft when it comes to linebackers. So maybe we're going to have to address this next year and just roll with Luke and see what we get out of him in 2024. But at some point, the Raiders need to address this and solidify it. The great thing is, despite the fact that Robert Spillane looks like he's in his 30s because he's just got that New York gritty iron worker type blue collar look to him, he's actually only in his mid-20s. So he's going to be a guy that we want to keep for a long time, lock him in with an extension on his deal. And I think that the Raiders should get that done this year so that we don't have to worry about him over the next 2 or 3 years moving forward. And then we need to address the other side of him, and that is Luke Masterson. I think we need an upgrade at that position to really become a dominant defense in the NFL, and particularly in the AFC West. The next issue that the Raiders need to address, and I know that I've said this in the past and I've gotten a lot of pushback in the comment section about it, saying that we don't need it, that our wide receiver core is just fine. Yes, we do have a good wide receiver core. We have Devontae Adams, who's one of the best in the business when it comes to being a true number one receiver. And Jacoby Myers is a fantastic slot receiver who's very versatile. He's a great blocker. He can even throw you a touchdown on a trick play. He's just a fantastic pickup. Thank you, Patriots, for not understanding talent on your team like you did with Jack Johnson. And we're so happy to have them on the team now. However, we don't really have that dominant 6'4" style wide receiver that's going to be that big red zone threat. And there are some receivers that are coming out of the draft that are going to fall out of the first round. They will be available, and they are 6'3", 6'4" guys. I'm thinking of, again, back to FSU, a Keon Coleman. This guy is fast. This guy has great hands, and he's 6'4". He is a true red zone threat. Now, I know we have Michael Mayer is supposed to be that tight end red zone threat as well, but you have to have that at the wide receiver position. You have to be able to have a guy who can do the jump balls in the back of the end zone, back corner of the end zone, and come down with the ball over a 6 foot or a 5'11" DB. And we don't have that. So we really need to address that. I believe it should be addressed in this draft, even if we have to do some trading and some swapping and some backdoor deals to get the draft capital in order to draft a guy like a Keon Coleman, who I believe would still be available at pick number 44, or somebody of his caliber. And I'll leave that up to Tom Telesco, because when it comes to drafting wide receivers, he has a proven track record of understanding that faster, bigger, taller is a great thing to have on the team. Just look at the guys he's drafted in the past to the Chargers. So I think he'll be addressing that again this year. If not, we would certainly be wanting to address it next year. Now, there's another issue that we need to address, and I've left this one to the back end of this video because I know that a lot of people are in love with or have a hatred for AOC. Aiden O'Connell, in my opinion, did everything that he needed to do to earn QB1, particularly with his last 5 games of play. And again, I know everybody loves to bring up the KC game, but you also have to remember that we asked him to stop throwing the ball and hand it off to Zamir White, and that is why he didn't have an awful lot of yards. But with that being said, he also did not cost us the game. And we played a game of defense, and we played a game of strategy to beat the Chiefs in their own building, and he was able to manage that game effectively for us to come out with the dub. And so much appreciation to him for being able to understand his role in that game, because he is a rookie. And if you try and put it all on a rookie's shoulders, their tendency is going to be to go and throw interceptions. And he didn't do that. So we won the game. And he did great when it came to the other games in the last half of his starting season. So I think Aiden O'Connell is a viable option at QB1. I think he's a better option than Gardner Minshew. And Tom Telesco, in his most recent interview, was very clear that they brought in Gardner Minshew in order to compete with, but also to help AOC get better. So it doesn't seem as though Tom Telesco and certainly Antonio Pierce is not throwing AOC under the bus. So look for Aiden O'Connell to be QB1 in 2024. And I know that that's going to make a lot of people upset, but it is the smart thing to do because he has the most experience with the team and the receivers of any other quarterback that's on the team right now. However, as much as I believe in Aiden O'Connell's capability of being a game managing quarterback and possibly even becoming a dominant quarterback in the NFL as a pocket passer, I do believe that the Raiders need to fill the position of replacing Gardner Minshew, because Gardner Minshew is clearly signed to a Band-Aid contract. That's why you only sign a quarterback to a 2-year deal. He is only there as an insurance policy for Aiden O'Connell. Therefore, you have to have somebody that's going to replace him or possibly even replace Aiden O'Connell. And I think that you can do that in this draft. And the signs is that we're looking at a guy from, again, back to Florida State by the name of Jordan Travis, who I've made now 2 videos about. We were the first team to bring him in on the golden ticket interview. You only get 30 of those. And the Raiders spent one right away on Jordan Travis and brought him in for an interview at the facility. And from all reports, the interview went well. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the Raiders do with this kid, because he was in the top 5 quarterback conversation last year. He was in the hunt for a Heisman Trophy, and he simply got a terrible injury, not unlike what a lot of other quarterbacks have had in the NFL and have come back and been just fine. So the fact that he did break his ankle is not something that's going to keep him from being a great quarterback in the NFL.